Hello, good evening, everyone. So, is there any question that you have? All right. Okay. Then. So, populist democracy recommendation was not there, but in the monetary policy challenges in our last class, that is yesterday, we have discussed that due to populist measures, the government, under the populist measures, the government expenditure increases, and government always try to dominate over the decisions of the RBI. So that becomes difficult for RBI to manage the money flow in the market, and this is one of the challenge of the monetary policy. Correct, Subla? Subla. So this is what we call the populist democracy. Okay. Chalo. So we have started our banking system in India, in which we have already discussed regarding how the banking sector emerged, how it originated, and how it came into picture. At the same time, we have also discussed how our SBI came into picture with the advent of the SBI. You know, the emergence of the SBI, the banking sector actually started in our country. Okay. Now see, if you look at the geographical location of the banks, so the banks were set up mainly in the urban areas, in the cities. ठीक, एक था हमारा बॉम्बे में, one bank was in Bombay, another bank was in Madras, another bank was in Bengal, Calcutta. तो ये तीन जगह पे हमारा बैंक था. So all these three places are very much industrialized, are very much commercialized in nature. So as these banks are very much commercialized in nature, very much industrialized in nature, so and they were having those banks were owned by the private entity. So due to that particular reason, our local population or the rural people, they were not getting the benefit of the banking development in the country. So according to 2011 census, still 70% of the Indian population resides in rural areas according to 2011. Then imagine about the 1960s. So the these people, those who were having the bank account, they were mainly the businessmen, the business people, rich business people. So during that particular time period, the government wanted to expand the banking facility and did not wanted to restrict the banking facility only in the major cities, rather on the village areas as well. So for that particular reason, how the government will go for it, how the government will fulfill its ambition of developing or setting up its banking areas or the banks in the rural areas or in the unbanked sector areas. So for that particular purpose, the government had one plan, and our government, then government actually, under the leadership, under the prime ministership of Indira Gandhi, executed one plan in order to expand the banking facility throughout the India, and the plan was named as nationalization of bank. So under the nationalization of banks, the banks were given the command. The central government started controlling the more than 50% shares. 50% shares of the bank or the private bank, simply central government purchased the maximum shares, especially the more than 50% shares of the private bank. Hence, it becomes the bank of the government and came to known as public sector banks, PSB. This came to be known as public sector bank. Under our public sector banks, the government started opening up the bank account, opening up, expanding its branches in unbanked rural areas as well, under its mission called nationalization of bank. So the nationalization of bank were had certain problems. Also, nationalization of bank also come up with certain challenges or certain problems situated or associated with it. So what was those problems? So those problems was, as the nationalization comes up or takes place in the year 1969, the government basically nationalized the banks for the first time in the year 1969. Not for the first time, but after third time actually. Majority of the banks were nationalized during this time period. In the year 1969, nationalization of the banks took place. So with the nationalization of bank, what government started, what was the problem that arises? The main majority problem was of non-commitment. Okay, people were not fulfilling its commitment. People used to take the loan but did not used to return it, because it was of the government. It was the government employee who used to take the loan, the Bahubali, okay, and other political leaders used to take the loan from the banks but did not used to return all those loans, because the banks belongs to the government only. So due to the administrative deficiency, the problem slowly the problem regarding non-performing assets started arising. Now, what is the meaning of non-performing assets? So there are different stages. So first thing is that non-performing assets, NPA, we call it. So under the NPA, under the non-performing assets, if a person has taken the loan and are not returning the loan for more than 90 days, okay, so that particular thing will be called as doubtful asset. Then if a person is not returning the loan for more than a year, it will be called as stressed asset. If the person is not returning the amount for more than 3 years, that will be called as NPA, non-performing asset. And if it is beyond all those limits, okay, then that will be called as lost asset. So this is basically the classification of NPA. So why we call it non-performing asset? Under non-performing asset, so first of all, what is the meaning of asset? So asset is the loan that we give to the people, right? So that is what we call asset. We have already discussed as the meaning of asset in our previous lectures. So asset means that the loan that is being given. Okay. So if this particular loan, if so, that is the asset. Why that is the asset? We have already discussed it. Kindly go through the lecture if you do not remember it. So if that is the asset, so if that particular money is not being returned, अगर वो पैसा वापस नहीं आ रहा है, so हम क्या बोलेंगे, ये asset है हमारा जो perform नहीं कर रहा है. So ये जो asset था हमारा convert होना था asset में, this asset is not being able to convert itself. So that is what we call NPA. If the asset will not come back, then what are the challenges associated with the NPA? What if any amount becomes the NPA? Then what are the challenges related to it? Why it is a cause of concern? Why it is a problem? That also we need to understand.
Uh, Sir,
Yes, sir.
one thing could be like if we are not getting the asset back, we in turn cannot give any more loans because we are expecting the money to come back from the customer. So if let's say if anybody else comes to the bank to get more loans, basically they'll have to think twice before lending the money because they themselves
Absolutely.
don't have the asset that they need to get back.
Absolutely. So this is the thing. So if the money is not getting returned, if the people are not returning the money, then the bank will start suddenly, after some time, the bank will start losing trust over their customer. And once they will lose the trust, then lending process will become the slow, because and hence that will reduce the lending process. And once the lending process is reduced, so that will lead to the less investment in the into the market. So less investment means less infrastructure development. Less infrastructure development also means the less employment opportunities. So it will have the overall, it will have the holistic impact over our economic structure. So this is the major concern. This is the major problem regarding the non-performing asset. So if the money would not come back, so it will have the holistic problem in our economy, because the banks will lose the trust and they will not be getting it. So why the problem of NPA arises? The problem, how the concept of NPA actually originated. So that also we need to understand. So the problem, yeah, yes, Kanchi.
Sir, could you please tell again the classification of NPA, like doubtful asset and all?
Definitely. So if the money is not being returned within the 90 days, then that will be called as doubtful asset. If it is not being returned for more than a year, it will be called as stressed asset. If it is more than 3 years, then it will be called as NPA, non-performing asset. This is
Professor,
yeah, yes, Indusha.
what is the significance or importance of the public sector banks then?
I'll come to that regarding it. Now see, so the NPA related is why the problem of NPA arises. What is the issue in it? Let's discuss that particularly. Now see, so first of all, the problem arises after the nationalization of bank itself, because the nationalization leads to the red tapeism, and due to the red tapeism, people started taking banking sector lightly. They stopped. They used to take the loan, but they did not follow the guidelines and did not use to return the money. So they actually developed the NPA issue. Then what happened? That after 2000. Economy was at its boom, economy was at its peak, economy was prospering, it was developing holistically. So if when the economy was at its boom period, so people started taking the loan immediately. Why people started taking the loan? People started taking the loan simply because the loan amount that they will take, that those particular amount can be invested into the market, and people can earn the more profit because economy is doing good. बहुत अच्छे से चल रहा है, तो लोगों के पास पैसे हैं, लोग खरीद सकते हैं. तो अगर इकोनॉमी अच्छी चल रही है तो एक काम करो, पैसे ले लो and go and invest into the market. So for that particular purpose people started taking loan. तो लोगों ने क्या किया, लोन लेना एकदम बहुत अच्छे तरीके से शुरू कर दिया. So once people started taking the loan, so but after some times in the year 2008, economy, the world economy collapses, and the amount that they have invested, okay, those amount simply comes down. अब एक चीज क्या हुई कि इन्होंने पैसा तो अपना लगा दिया था मार्केट में, बट दे वर नॉट एबल टू रिटर्न बैक ड्यू टू द कोलैप्स ऑफ द मार्केट. सो मार्केट हमारा कोलैप्स कर गया था एंड इनके पैसे क्या हो गए, डूब गए. अब इनके पास दे डू नॉट हैव इनफ मनी टू रिटर्न द अमाउंट. व्हाई दे डू नॉट हैव इनफ मनी? बिकॉज़ द अमाउंट दैट दे हैव इन्वेस्टेड they were in an impression that they will get it back because they have invested a lot. But due to the global financial crisis in the year that came in the year 2008, their money simply vanished, their money simply ran away. So because of that particular reason, they were not having excess money to lend to the concerned bank. So this particular thing arises the problem, and generates the problem related to the non-performing asset. So NPA, it basically means the assets that are not at all performing good, not at all performing well. So that is what we call the non-performing assets. So this is the reason that how it originated and how it developed.
So, but isn't there any like guidelines or regulations to penalize the people once, like after like 1 year or something, like to keep a check on them, so that it does not become a non-performing asset, and so that we could actually get
We
the
have
asset
the
back?
guidelines. We have the guidelines. Banks have the guidelines, but those things are not that much stringent initially. During that particular time period, those things were not stringent and not in a proper fashion, not in a proper manner. All right. So that is the reason. People used to take the loan, but did not used to return the loan. So that is it.
Basically, this is we are talking like way back when basically the nationalization happened only.
So even though the nationalization happens, so people used to simply take the loan amount but did not used to return, because they used to consider the banks, they simply took a bank for granted. So that is the thing. So whenever you will take anything for granted, definitely that will backfire. Now see, उसके बाद की स्टोरी क्या है? So if we have the problem related to our NPA, then there must be some solution to it. So for that particular reason, Narasimhan Committee Narasimhan Committee 2 recommended that there must be something, there must be some system that should have the capacity to control the arising issue of NPA, non-performing asset. So Narasimhan Committee recommended to set up and to go for Sarfasi Act, to frame Sarfasi Act. What is Sarfasi Act? Sarfasi Act, the full form is securitization So Sarfasi Act full form is also very important. So for the first time, you need to mention the full form in your answer sheet if question comes. The full form is Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Asset and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. Please write it down. So this particular act, Narasimhan Committee 2 recommended that in order to deal with the NPA crisis, NPA issue, you must have something to control it, to counter the NPA thing. So for that particular reason, Sarfasi Act was introduced, and as well as enacted by the central government. This is Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Asset and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. Yes, again. Under this particular thing, this SYLLABUS Act came into picture simply to deal with the NPA crisis. Under this SYLLABUS Act, we were having the formation regarding the asset reconstruction company. Under this, the provision of ARC, that is asset reconstruction company work. So under the asset reconstruction company, the banks were empowered to confiscate the property of the offender, NPA offender actually. So those who were the NPA offenders, the banks were first of all empowered to confiscate the property. The banks were empowered to give notice to them, to threaten to them regarding the returning of the loan amount. So that was the purpose, that was the thing that has come up under the SYLLABUS Act. Okay, this particular act came into the picture in the year 2002. But so this particular thing was there, but this particular SYLLABUS Act was very much limited in nature. SYLLABUS Act used to basically collect the information or collect the thing under the domestic purposes only. What if the people have taken the higher amount, higher loan amount, right? So that was not being fulfilled, that particular thing was not being judged. So there was an issue related to it. So in order to strengthen the SYLLABUS Act in the budget of 2018-19, then Prime Minister late Arun Jaitley Sahab during that particular time period, Arun Jaitley Sahab in his budget speech simply introduced one new law called as Fugitive Economic Offenders Act 2018. So Fugitive Economic Offenders Act 2018 was introduced. Under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, this is a very important topic, you need to understand this particular thing. So under this particular act, so the government, central government basically first of all decided that who will be called as a fugitive economic offender. So fugitive economic offender is will be nothing but a person who have left the country, against whom arrest warrant has been issued and they have refused to come back to the country. एक ऐसे लोग fugitive economic offender हम उनको बोलेंगे जो लोग हमारा देश छोड़ चुके हैं, जिनके अगेंस्ट में अरेस्ट वारंट इशू हो चुका है और जिन लोगों ने देश छोड़ के आने से इनकार कर दिया है. So they will be called as fugitive economic offender. Under this particular act, first of all, it was defined. Then a special court would be set up. A special director would be appointed. So a special director would be appointed to look after and to coordinate the entire process of the fugitive economic offender. Then those who will be the fugitive economic offender, they will lose his or her civil rights. A special court would be set up. And the second one is a special director would be appointed. So those who will be nominated or those who will be considered as a fugitive economic offender, so they will lose their civil right. What is civil right? Please talk to your concerned polity faculty. Okay, they will explain you regarding this particular. All right. So this was the thing related to it. Under the fugitive economic offender, which is a new law, which is the new thing, the government empowered the banks. And under this particular new act that was introduced in the year 2018 budget. So under this particular act, the banks were empowered not only to confiscate the property of an offender which is in India but also outside India. ठीक है, ऐसे लोगों का भी property confiscate कर सकती है banks whose property is outside the India. Okay, so this is one such thing, one such very much unique thing with respect to the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. But in order to fulfill the last part of this particular act, the government should have the good mutual relationship between the government of India as well as the government of said country. So if the government of said country refuses to extradite the concerned person, then the things won't be applicable. तब ये बढ़िया तरीके से काम भी अपना नहीं कर पाएगा. So this is about the fugitive economic offender, and this is how we will try to control the issue or the concern related to the non-performing asset. Please ask me if you have any question with respect to NPA.
Sir, please can you repeat the last statement? I did not understand that.
So under the NPA, banks are empowered to confiscate the property of the offender, of the fugitive economic offender, not only in India, but their or his or her property outside India also. So that is the thing, that is the provision under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. So if they have to confiscate the property outside India, so for that particular purpose, they have to take the concurrence. They have to actually take the approval of the then of that particular country's government, because without if you are supposed to extradite the property of suppose that any person acts in London, so for that particular reason you have to take the permission from the local authority. So that is what was that I have mentioned in our last thing. यही चीज थी जो मैंने mention किया. That will be appointed by the central government supra through a selection committee. Selection committee will keep a watch over them, and then they will appoint. So this is the thing related to our NPA. Anyone having any other question? No question? Yeah, yes, Kanchi.
So could you explain again the whole concept in brief? Actually, not that much clear.
NPA is simply a challenge based on where the banks are not getting return whatever amount that they have lended to. Okay? So if they are not getting the whatever amount that they have lended to the people, then definitely that will be problematic for the bank, because if the bank, suppose that this is the bank, so if the bank has lended the money, okay, to person X, so that money the bank has taken from someone else has deposited the money, and that money has been given to this particular person, and if this particular person is not returning the amount, so how the banks will return the amount to them, to this particular person? So that is one such concern. Another concern is that if there will be the NPA issue where people will be taking the money but will not be returning the amount to the concerned bank, so for that, in that particular thing, the banks will lose the interest and the trust of the banks. So this is what we call the non-performing asset. Is this clear to you now, Kanchi?
Yes.
All right. So now we have been till now we have discussed the emergence of banking in India. Then we have discussed nationalization of banks. Then we have discussed the issue of NPA. After NPA, we have discussed SARFAESI Act. And Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. These are the things that now we are done with. Now we are concerned with regarding, first of all, the banking reforms, how the reforms came into the banking sector. And I will hardly take now, hardly it will take 10 to 15 days, and we'll be covering the maximum portion. Maximum portion हमारा हो जाएगा under this particular time. Chalo. So now let's discuss the first of all few particular committees under this particular thing, under the banks. Then we will discuss, after that we will discuss the problem regarding the Basel norms and other rest of the things that we'll be discussing after that, and the types of bank and all. Just a minute. चलो ठीक है, पहले मैं बेसल कमिटी ही बता देता हूँ कि बेसल नॉर्म्स क्या है. Then we will discuss about the different banking reforms that has come up at a different time. Okay, because that particular thing is not that much important. Basel norms are very much important. Now see, with the rising issue of NPA, so why the banks are having the NPA? Because bank people simply used to lend, take the money, but did not used to return the amount, simply because they used to take the money at a lower interest rate. So as they used to take the return, the money at a lower interest rate, then what would happen? Then this particular lower interest rate would motivate most of the people to take the loan. But due to the sudden fallout in the economic situation, the NPA, they were left with no money, and the problem of NPA, non-performing asset, started rising, and NPA also leads birth to the corruption system. Now see, in order to deal with this particular system, so it was not a concern only related to the India, rather it was a global concern. So the NPA was a global issue, was a global challenge. So for that particular thing, for that particular reason, in order to take up all those things, all the central government of India, maximum central, not all, but the maximum central bank of India set up one committee named as Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So Basel Committee on Banking Supervision was founded out, named as BCBS, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So what is in this particular thing? Basel is a city in Switzerland. So under the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, we used to keep certain amount of money. Banks were required to keep the certain amount of money with RBI. That is also one of the things. The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision simply says that we have to keep certain amount. अपने पास कुछ पैसा रखना पड़ेगा अच्छे से, so that we would be that money could be used for specific purposes. हम वो पैसा को specific purpose, specific चीज के लिए हम अच्छे से use कर सकते हैं. So under the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, there were various guidelines that was issued. Okay, and all the central bank of the government, maximum those who are the member, so they are the part of the Basel Committee. Basel Committee was created. All the central banks, so India's central bank, that is RBI. RBI is also the part of Banking Committee. Yes, Agnes, please.
Yeah, so like Kanchi has mentioned, like this is like CRR and SLR, right?
Definitely. Okay, the Basel Committee also mentioned that you have to put higher CRR, higher SLR like this. Okay, so this is the thing. Now see, why we have already discussed that the banks are required to keep CRR, banks are required to keep SLR. So why the banks are required to keep the CRR and SLR? So banks are simply required to keep it just because that they those money could be used during NPS situation. Once the NPS situation arises, so during that particular time period, CRR and SLR quota can be used, can be utilized. So this is the thing. In order to deal with the non-performing asset, okay, it was a global concern, it was a global issue, it was a global challenge. So in order to meet this particular global challenge, the maximum central bank of our country, they simply created one committee called as Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, BCBS. So the central bank becomes the part of this particular committee. The RBI, India Central Bank, also became, that was also the thing. Now, so these Basel Committee on Banking Supervision started providing guidelines to the central bank that you have to follow these things. If you will follow these things, then your banks will prosper. Otherwise, you will keep continuing with the problems with respect to the NPA, that is non-performing asset. Okay, so what are the guidelines that was given by the BCBS, that is Basel Committee on Banking Supervision? So that particular guidelines came to be known as Basel norms. उसको हम बोलने लग गए Basel norms, whatever guidelines that was come up, जो भी guidelines आया था उस guidelines को हमने बोला Basel norms. So what are those Basel norms? Basel norms हमारे पास क्या है? सबसे पहली चीज है, so Basel norms is a kind of guidelines, is a kind of agreement that is between the BCBS, that is Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, and the respective central bank. Under these guidelines, the Basel Committee will provide certain restrictions, certain things that you have to keep higher CRR, you have to keep higher SLR. Okay, if you will keep higher CRR, if you will keep higher SLR, then definitely what would happen? Definitely during the time of NPA, that is non-performing asset, those higher CRR, those higher SLR could be utilized. वो सारे CRR, वो सारे SLR हमारे यहाँ पे utilize हो सकते हैं, use हो सकते हैं for larger perspective, for larger good. Okay, so this was the thing that was proposed by the Basel Committee, and the banks has to follow this particular thing. ठीक है, तो ये क्या है? Basel Committee, ये Basel norms. Actually Basel norms are nothing but the guidelines. These are the guidelines related to it. Okay, so Basel Committee is being that is the thing. तो ये है हमारे, आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे ये कैसे कब established हुआ था? It was established by Central Bank Governor of Group of 10 countries in 1974. 1974 में जाकर के ये हमारा setup हुआ था. These are the factual information that you can read on your own, I believe. ठीक है, you are competent enough to read all those things. Now, why all those norms first of all came into picture? So I hope that you all have received this particular PPT, because in this PPT there is an extensive coverage of the banking sector, and apart from this particular thing you don't need anything to read. आपको कुछ और पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. Okay, if you will, this particular material, this particular notes will be more than sufficient. But yes, current updation is always required.
So when were these introduced? Basic norms?
1974.
1974.
Yeah. So why these norms came into picture? So this particular thing simply came into picture because if you look at the Indian scenario also, so the different banks used to give loan at different interest rates. So if the banks will give different the different loans at different interest rates, so those whose interest rates are low, definitely people will rush towards that particular bank in order to get the loan. So just after taking the loan, just because their interest rate is low, and every bank wants that उनका हो जाए थोड़ा लोन वोन हुआ आसानी से दे सके, उनको किसी चीज में कोई तकलीफ ना हो, किसी चीज में कोई दिक्कत ना हो. So for that particular purpose, the Basel Committee on Banking System simply says that no, there should be uniformity. Ek kya honi chahiye? Ek honi chahiye uniformity. If there will be no uniformity in the banking structure, then the banks will fall. हमारा banks क्या हो जाएगा? खत्म हो जाएगा, banks हमारा टूट जाएगा. Okay, so this is the thing related to it. So for this particular reason, in order to save the bank from the NPA crisis, from the challenge with respect to the non-availability of money, उस चीज से related हमारा challenge ना हो. So for that particular reason, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision come up with the concept of capital adequacy ratio.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, Kanchi.
Sir, but 2016 we had practiced base rate, right? In which rates were not uniform.
In this particular thing?
Yes, sir.
What you are
Also,
asking,
we had
Kanchi?
discussed that base rate was practiced till 2016, in which interest rates were not uniform, right?
Definitely.
So, and Basel norms came in 1974. So,
Yeah.
why we are facing that problem?
Why they are facing the problem related to what? They were facing the problem. No? If this particular thing is not uniform, if the banking structure is not uniform, okay, then definitely there will be the issue with respect
No,
to
sir.
our
My
banking
question
sector.
is, according to Basel norms, that it told us that rates should be uniform, but we had studied, right, base rate. 2016 we had practiced, so in that rates were not uniform. So why we are practicing that?
Why we used to place base rate?
Yes, sir.
See, during that particular time, the bank was at its evolving phase. Okay, so banks had not evolved that much. So banks were still there in the evolving stages. So the banks were given the liberty. If you are a private bank, if you have excess of liquidity, you can simply make the expenditure. And if you do not have, so how you will make the expenditure? By simply increasing the limit. आप क्या करोगे? Simply limit को increase करो. So you will have the excess of liquidity. How you will limit your strength or limit the things? By lowering down the interest rate. Once you will lower down the interest rate, you will have the risk taking capacity because maximum people will come and will take the loan. ठीक है? फिर तो हमारे maximum लोग जाकर के लोन लेकर के चले जाएंगे. Okay, so this is the reason, in order to promote the maximum selling of loans. अभी के भी टाइम पे आप लोगों को कॉल आता होगा कि हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस के लिए ये ले लीजिए, इस चीज के लिए ये ले लीजिए, इस चीज के लिए ये ले लीजिए. Okay, so this is the thing. So the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So there are three such particular things. There are three Basel norms. Basel norm 1, Basel norm 2, Basel norm 3. Don't worry, we will discuss about all those Basel norms in detail in today's class itself. ठीक है, तो सारी चीजें तो इन्होंने क्या सजेस्ट किया, in order to control the excessive NPA, increasing the NPA, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision come up with the concept of capital adequacy ratio. And in the year 2018 prelims exam, UPSC have already asked the question related to the capital adequacy ratio, that this is what we call the capital adequacy ratio. इससे related already जो है UPSC हमारा पूछ चुकी है question. Okay, now see what is capital adequacy ratio. हम किसे बोलते हैं capital adequacy ratio? So first of all, suppose that you have purchased one particular house. So there are two people, there are two persons, person X and person Y. Person X have taken the loan in the name of house, sorry, person Y have taken the loan for house, and person X have taken loan for any other reason, have not specified the reason. उन्होंने बोला कि मैं ये काम करूंगा, वो काम करूंगा, that will not create that tangible asset. But here the person Y has mentioned that I will set up my house and that will create the tangible asset. All right, so for this particular thing, this giving loan to those who to Y will be always be fruitful, है ना? To Y को loan देना banks के लिए fruitful रहेगा. Why that particular thing will become fruitful for giving loan? Because the bank will have the house as a property, house as a commodity with the bank. So even if the Y fails to return the amount, the banks will simply sell or will simply confiscate the property of the Y और उनको घर से बाहर निकाल देंगे. All right, so this is the thing that would happen. And तो यही बोला गया हमारे जो बेसल नॉर्म्स के अंदर में, अंडर द कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो, अंडर दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग द BCBS, दैट इज बेसल कमिटी ऑन बैंकिंग सुपरविजन. 2-3 बार नाम को रट्टा मारोगे एकदम बढ़िया तरीके से याद हो जाएगा. सो द कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो हमारा वो होता है दैट इट इज अ सर्टेन अमाउंट दैट इज केप्ट असाइड. एक स्पेसिफिक अमाउंट होता है जिसको हम साइड करके हम रख देते हैं, and we say that no, we will not use from this particular amount. So if the banks are having the specific amount in order to lend, after deducting all those things from CRR, from SLR, from OMO, and from all other things, if the banks are having the money, for example 10,000 crore, so here in this particular situation bank will simply set aside 7,000 crore. बैंक यहाँ पे क्या करेगा, 7,000 करोड़ को सेट असाइड करके रख लेगा. क्यों? सो दैट ये 10,000 का पूरा हम लोन दे सके फॉर आवर हाउसिंग पर्पस. व्हाट नॉट येट. ओके, सो PPT is not visible. Okay. Saying simply that you are not receiving. Oh, all right. So this is what we call the capital adequacy ratio. कि हमारा घर हो गया. So घर पे लोन देना would be more preferable क्योंकि ये हमारा सही रहेगा. और अगर मान लो 10,000 करोड़ हमने लोन दिया, इसमें से 7,000 करोड़ एक परसेंटेज अमाउंट, एक फिक्स्ड अमाउंट, नॉट टू बी एग्जैक्ट बट अ परसेंटेज अमाउंट, अ फिक्स्ड अमाउंट वी विल कीप असाइड. उसको हम साइड करके रख लेंगे सो दैट अगर ये हमारा लोन वापस नहीं भी आता है, even if this particular thing becomes the NPA, so we would be having certain amount with ourselves. हमारे पास कुछ पैसा रहेगा that can be used, that can be utilized.
What would be the difference between SLR and this amount then?
SLR is definitely a separate thing that is being decided by the Reserve Bank of India, that you are required to keep such amount of things, and this particular thing is decided by the Reserve Committee on Banking Supervision. And this particular thing, capital adequacy ratio, SLR is kept over the NDTL, but capital adequacy ratio is kept over the loan that we give to any particular person. So this is the thing. All right.
Okay, sir.
So Professor, this ratio is being decided by the BCBS for all the banks uniformly.
Definitely.
Okay.
So this is the thing. Now there were 3 basal norms that has come up. 3 basal norms हैं हमारे पास. As of now, India is following the basal norm 2. India is not following the basal norm 3. Okay, due to various reasons that I will be explaining to you. Okay, so there are 3 basal norms. So I hope capital adequacy ratio and till now whatever thing that we have discussed till now is clear to you all. Any question? Is there anyone having any question regarding the topic that we have discussed till now? Are you getting it?
No questions, sir.
No questions. All right. So we have the basal norm 1. So basal norm 1 was introduced in the year 1988. This particular figure facts are not at all important for you all because UPSC will never ever ask the factual questions related to it. Okay. So this particular thing, the basal norm 1 focuses mainly on credit risk. So what is credit risk? So credit risk is simply that we have discussed above. Okay, that if a person is having a house, if a person is taking loan for the housing purpose, and if a person is taking loan for general purpose, any other purposes where tangible assets are not being developed. Okay, so the credit risk here would be more. Those people who are taking loan not for the tangible asset but for any other purpose. So यहाँ पे credit risk ज़्यादा होगा. Why? क्योंकि अगर इसने return नहीं किया तो बैंक के पास will not have that much thing available in order to confiscate that particular property. इसके पास नहीं होगा, but बैंक क्या करेगा, इसके घर को confiscate कर सकती है. So that is what we call the credit risk. Okay. So इसी को हम बोलते हैं कि risk weighted asset. This credit risk is also called as risk weighted asset. Sure. There are 2 people, Ram and Shyam. Shyam has taken loan in order to set up one house. एक घर बनाने के लिए श्याम ने लोन, राम ने लिया है for any XYZ purpose. Yeah, this is what that I am is explaining to you, Janvi. Just a credit risk. So XYZ purpose, for any XYZ purpose, Ram has taken the loan. So here the credit risk of Shyam would be higher. Why? Because the Shyam is not involved in any asset generation, which is tangible in nature. But here the Shyam is giving loan to Shyam would not be, the credit risk here would be lower. Why? Because the Shyam has asset. Okay, the credit risk is something that we call that if we will provide a loan to any particular person, so what amount of risk that is involved. ठीक है, कितना ज्यादा रिस्क उसमें इन्वॉल्व है कि पैसा आएगा या पैसा नहीं आएगा, कितने ज्यादा चांसेस है, दैट इज व्हाट वी कॉल क्रेडिट रिस्क. ठीक है, सो क्रेडिट रिस्क इज आल्सो नोन एज, इज आल्सो कॉल्ड एज रिस्क वेटेड एसेट. ठीक है, कि किस पर्टिकुलर एसेट पे अपने को कितना ज्यादा रिस्क रहता है. सो दोज हु आर हैविंग द हाउस, so their risk is low. Those who have taken the loan for any other XYZ purposes, for intangible products, for intangible things, so the risk would be higher here. यहाँ पे risk होगा हमारा high. So this is what we call credit risk. That is also called as risk weighted asset. So this was the thing. Okay, this was the guidelines under the basal norm 1. This was the main provision, main important thing under the our basal norm 1 guidelines. India adopted the basal 1 guidelines in the year 1999. That we need to remember, because in our preliminary examination, in a sequence wise questions, UPSC may frame the question and will give you that. Okay, So under the Basel Norm 1, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision simply stated that the risk-weighted asset should be 8%. हमारा risk weighted asset कितना होना चाहिए? Risk weighted asset should be 8%. You have to keep 8%. So किसी को आपने 10,000 crore का लोन दिया है for any XYZ purposes. Okay, so here you have to keep aside the 8%. यहाँ पे आपको 8%, 8% अपने पास रखना पड़ेगा under the risk weighted asset. Then in the year 2004, 2004 में, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision provided the Basel II guidelines, okay, to all the central government, not the central government, rather to all the central bank, okay, so, for their holistic purposes, for so that the banking sector could be strengthened and could be developed. So in the year 2004, the Basel II guidelines was released, Basel II guidelines was introduced. Okay, so this particular guidelines was considered as very much refined in nature because various things were not clear to the people. बहुत लोगों को बहुत सारी चीजें clear नहीं हुई थी. So this particular Basel II guidelines was very much refined. It was considered as a refined. Okay. Under this particular thing, under the Basel II norm, there were the three guidelines. The guidelines were issued under the heading of three things. तीन चीजों के अंदर में guidelines को issue किया गया था. पहला चीज is, first thing is capital adequacy requirement. That is capital adequacy requirement. मतलब कोई भी हम चीजों का capital adequacy ratio above that we have already discussed. तो capital adequacy requirement क्या होना चाहिए? तो 8% of risk asset होना चाहिए. We have just now discussed the capital adequacy requirement, so I don't feel that I need to repeat this particular thing again. So 8% should be the capital adequacy requirement. So that is the first thing, first guideline issued by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. And one more thing, that RBI, the central bank, is not bounded, not at all bounded, that whenever the Basel Committee will be formed and whenever Basel norms would come up, the central government will have to follow that. No, that is not necessary, that is not required. वो उतना ज़्यादा necessary नहीं है, ठीक है, जरूरी नहीं है, compulsory, कोई compulsory नहीं है. That will totally depend upon the central bank that whether they want to follow the guidelines or not. Okay, so this is the thing. So under the Basel II norms, the capital adequacy ratio should be 8%. So this is the first thing that was mentioned. Under second thing was that there should be supervisory review. Okay, so the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision simply noticed that just because of the lack of review, there is no review going on, so the banks are lending more and more and more to the people. So if the banks will continue to lend more and more money to the people, so that will be problematic, that will be challenging, because that will start creating the issue of the non-performing asset. ये ना NPA issue को और भी ज़्यादा create करना शुरू कर देगा. So that is the thing. ये हो गया हमारा. So for that particular reason, supervisory review has to be there. So you know the banks should be supervised. Otherwise, the banks will create the issue. Then the question arises that why the banks will keep giving the loan to the people if we are creating the problem of the NPA, if they also have the issue related to it. So the thing is what, simply bank won't understand that in future this particular thing may become problematic, may become NPA. बैंक वाले को जनरली कॉमर्शियल बैंक्स वाले को स्टार्टिंग में ये चीज समझ में नहीं आती है कि ये आगे चल करके प्रॉब्लमेटिक भी हो सकता है, चैलेंज भी बन सकता है, एनपीए भी बन सकता है. Banks simply want the more I will lend, the more I will earn. Okay, this is the simple philosophy of the bank. जितना ज्यादा मैं lend करूंगा, उतना ज्यादा मैं पैसे कमाऊंगा. Okay, because the lending, their lending is called as asset. इनके lending को तो asset बोला जाता है. That's why they try to lend more and more money. So that's why they have to be supervised. Why they have to supervise? Because they have three. The banks, Basel II norm says the banks faces three types of challenges. Okay, they have the three risks. One is credit risk, another one is market risk, second one is operational risk. So what are all those three things? So the credit risk is that even what if they give the money and they did not take it back और इनको वापस नहीं मिलती है, तो उसको हम बोलते हैं क्रेडिट रिस्क. मार्केट रिस्क आपका almost similar होता है क्रेडिट रिस्क से related, but in the market there are other competitors as well. Okay, so if you will not be able to advertise yourself properly, you won't be able, that won't become fruitful. वो ज़्यादा fruitful नहीं हो पाएगा, and there will be a chances of your collapsing. Okay, so that is what we call the market risk. Operational risk is regarding the administrative efficiency, that how administrative efficient you are, कितना ज़्यादा आप efficient हो administratively. Okay, so that is what we call the operational risk, because if you are not administratively efficient, right, then you will start facing the challenge. आपको क्या होगा, आपको बहुत ज़्यादा challenge face करना पड़ जाएगा अगर आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा efficient नहीं हो. Okay, so this is what we call the operational risk. So Basel norm simply says that the banks have to follow 3 types of risk. Okay, please remember these 3 risks, because these 3 risks are very much important from especially from your prelims point of view. UPSC will simply ask you that what are the different type of risk mentioned by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. How far mains questions are concerned, the UPSC may simply ask you, despite having the monetary policy strategy and the Basel Committee Basel norms, why India is not able to tackle the problem of NPA. Okay, this is how UPSC will frame you the question. Okay, if you will write this particular answer, that will be good. Okay, so अगर आप ये आंसर इस चीज पे लिखना चाहोगे तो most welcome, please write. The question is, despite having monetary policy strategy and Basel norms, still India is facing the issue of non-performing asset. Examine. So if you will write, please write in 250 words. All right. All right. Then the third thing that the Basel 2 norm was highlighting, was talking about, was the market discipline. ठीक है, तीसरा चीज जो बात कर रही थी, एक तो हो गया आपका क्रेडिट रिस्क, एक हो गया सुपरवाइजरी रिव्यू, तीसरा हो गया हमारा मार्केट रिस्क. Okay, so market risk, whatever thing that we have discussed till now, that is what we call the market risk. अभी हमने already discuss किया है कि market में other challenges, there is a challenge with respect to the credit risk also, there is a challenge with respect to the capital adequacy ratio also. Okay, so whatever thing that we are providing to our customer, so that has to be properly organized, properly channelized. ठीक है, जो भी चीजें हम अपने कस्टमर को प्रोवाइड करते हैं वो प्रॉपर्ली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड हो, प्रॉपर्ली चैनलाइज्ड हो, उसे हम क्लियर करके रखें कि भाई साहब देखो ये ऐसा है एंड यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू फॉलो दिस पर्टिकुलर सेट. ठीक है, ये सारी गाइडलाइंस है, ये सारी चीजें हैं और आपको ये सारी गाइडलाइंस, ये सारी चीजें फॉलो करनी है. Okay, so that will also come under the market discipline itself. Please remember, very important point, that currently India is following this norm only. ठीक है, as of now India is following Basel norm 2. अच्छा, answer me one thing, are you able to understand the thing? चीजें समझ में आ रही है? समझ में आ रही है तो बता दो, नहीं समझ में आ रही है तो भी बता दो, so that I can explain again.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
I don't know why actually I am not getting the things today.
You are not getting the things today.
Yes.
Okay, what is the doubt? But still you guys are not asking the question.
So sir, actually I am not getting. I am thinking that you are not in mood to teach. Like it's not like every day. Like you teach and I get all the things very clearly. I don't know.
I am in a mood. That's why I am here. Isn't it?
सर आप गुस्सा हो पता नहीं हम लोगों से या फिर आई डोंट नो.
अरे ऐसी ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है ना. So if you will face, see the thing is that it's about the question. If you are not able to understand, please ask the question. है ना. एक बार भी ऐसा हुआ है कि मैंने मना किया है कि ना क्वेश्चन मत पूछो.
नो नो सर आज वो लिंक नहीं हो पा रहा है मतलब that linkage which I get every day. I ask the questions every day. You also know that. But I don't know why it's happening. I will see the recorded lecture once more.
Yeah, definitely. Please. Thank you, Shashika. चलो सो ये है हमारा बेसल नॉट टू. तो देखो मैं सम अप कर देता हूँ, समराइज एक तरीके से कर देता हूँ. हमारा एनपीए, हैव यू अंडरस्टूड द इशू रिलेटेड टू द एनपीए? ऑलराइट. So the NPA, in order to control the non-performing asset, we have internal. There are two things. One is internal, another one is external. What is the internal thing? Two things, that is internal. Another is external. What is internal? Under internal, again we have two things now. One is Sarfasi Act. Another one is Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Okay, so these are the two things that has been developed by our own government. Okay, that comes under the internal thing. Another thing is external. Under external thing we have Basel norms. Okay, so this is the thing. Clear till the Offenders Act. So now under the external thing we have Basel norms, Basel guidelines. So under the Basel guidelines, so what is Basel guidelines first of all?
Sir, it is mainly about that the banks has to keep CRR, higher rates of CRR and SLR, right?
Not about it only, but also see, it is basically about controlling the NP, increasing rate of non-performing asset. So this is the thing. So yes, absolutely correct, Janvi. It is regarding handling and supervision of the non-performing asset. So how it will issue it? By releasing certain guidelines. Okay, so there are three guidelines that Basel committee. So Basel is what? Basel is a city that is in Switzerland. Okay, that is the thing. So under this particular thing, it is a grouping. It is an organization of the central bank. ठीक है, ये central banks of the country का उनका और grouping है, इनकी organization. So these groupings, because NPA is not the issue of one particular country, NPA is the issue of other countries as well. Okay, आप लोगों को extra नहीं चाहिए था, otherwise I would have explained under the NPA other things as well. ठीक है, but आप लोगों को सिर्फ और सिर्फ इकोनॉमी की चीजें चाहिए थी. So that is the thing.
So we want extra, please do that. And sir, I was asking one question, that these Basel guidelines and everything, these are operated from Switzerland only then for India?
Yeah, definitely. There is a headquarter there. Okay, of Basel Committee of Banking Supervision. There is a headquarter, and every year central bank, RBI governor actually, no, the central bank, there will be the representation of the central bank. They will be meeting there, and they will be discussing all the stuffs related to it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So this is the thing, and see why I have started this particular practice, because I was not receiving any response from you guys. ठीक है, मुझे आप लोगों से कोई response ही नहीं मिल रहा था. So I thought that you guys are not at all interested. So let's continue in this particular manner only. Okay, so that's why I've increased the pace. I know that the pace is little bit high. Okay, I have completed almost half of banking. That was a matter of 3 or 4 lectures. I know that. So this is the thing. Okay, क्योंकि मुझे तो यही लगा था that you are not at all interested.
Professor.
Yes, Indija,
we are interested. We're sorry if we were the reason for you to get irritated, but please slow down.
All right, then.
Do tell us the extra things also. We really want to listen to it.
All right, see, because the thing is what now, while teaching, you have, there are various things that comes into the mind. All right. So, and what is the requirement of UPSC, that you have to connect one subject with another subject. Okay, because unless and until you are not connecting one subject with another subject, you are not going to get marks in your mains examination. So for that particular purpose, connectivity is required. And I continuously used to ask you, समझे बताओ इसका क्या है, बताओ इसका क्या है, and you guys used to keep silent. एकदम मौन व्रत पे, हर time पे. All right. So definitely, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, I will tell you, I will request you, I will ask you. But obviously, okay, this practice has to be stopped, because this is not at all of bureaucratic traits, right? So ये तो मैंने पहली बार कहा ही, पहले दिन कहा. Okay. See, Janvi, it's not only about doubt. All right. That whenever you will have doubt, you will ask the question. It is simply about that whenever I am also asking to you that whether you have understood this point or explained this particular concept, you guys simply used to keep mum. Except Kanchi, no one used to speak. Okay, Kanchi and Shubhra. Okay, only these are the two students who used to speak. Okay, apart from these two students, no one used to speak. And that because sometimes. Yes.
So only yesterday I was not active in that too, because so I was in some situation like at my house, things were not fine, so I was busy.
All right, no issue, no issue at all. I will from
Professor,
my
even I do speak
sometimes.
Like whenever I have a doubt, I do speak up mostly.
All right. So so you have not understood banking completely.
Yes, sir. I don't know. It's not clear. That's why I told you. I don't know.
Have you understood the monetary policy?
Yes, sir. Very well. Very well.
Yes, Professor.
Monetary policy
was fine.
Last, that was yesterday's class.
Yeah.
That the challenges and other recommendation. That is clear?
Yes, sir.
All
very
right.
much.
Then I'll do one thing. I'll start with the banking topic from the beginning itself from tomorrow. Will that be okay?
Please do, and please slow down the pace. Sorry for all.
Okay. All right. No issue.
Yeah, from now on, we promise to speak up.
All right, then that will be good for you actually. See what interest I have. I will, I can simply sum up your batch in 10 days. All right. So this is the thing, because but the thing is, what if I will do that and you won't get it? I'm telling you this. You won't even realize that your batch has ended so quickly. Okay, and you will understand that yes, everything is covered. But I'll be knowing that no, I have not covered all the things. You will not get that particular feeling. But I don't want my students to suffer, okay, by any means. All right. So this is the thing. All right, guys. So from tomorrow onwards, I will start the banking from the beginning. Okay, and we will start from the beginning itself. ठीक है? चलो फिर एक काम करते हैं, अभी तक के लिए फिर अब रहने देते हैं, कुछ नहीं हुआ है तो ठीक है, कल से करते हैं पूरा शुरू से शुरू. ठीक है? चलो then, thank you so much. See you tomorrow in tomorrow's class. Bye bye. Take care.